Proverbs 21, verse 3. To do what is right and just is more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice. Sometimes Proverbs uses a false contrast to place the focus on some aspect of the spiritual life. Here the contrast is between living righteously and sacrifice. Remember that believers need to live righteously and believers need to sacrifice. This contrast comes to the fore in the life story of Cain and Abel. The reason Cain's sacrifice wasn't accepted was because he was morally corrupt. He didn't live righteously. This is a story that exemplifies that being righteous is the purpose of sacrifice. Sacrifice is the manner in which your relationship with God becomes primary. And in that relationship with God, you make certain changes. You renew your mind, you renew your life, you renew your behavior. And then you become and you start to live in line with the righteousness that you have received from the sacrifice. The word righteousness is a word that is important to understand. We tend to have a judicial view of righteousness. In the Bible, within the context of the covenant of God, righteousness is a relationship word. It is a relationship word between two subjects where the one is good to the other as it is to be expected in terms of their relationship. Let's say the relationship between two people are that of brothers. Then the one is expected to act like a brother towards the other one, and the other one is expected to act like a brother in return. Or let's say that would be a righteous relationship where the acts of brotherhood is external, but both are bound by them by this moral law in brothership. Let's say, for instance, the relationship is between husband and wife. Then a husband got certain obligations towards his wife, and his wife has got certain obligations towards him. These obligations are determined outside of their relationship, and then their relationship is measured according to these obligations. That would be a righteous marriage. The path of righteousness, as Psalm 23 calls it, has to do with the interaction between two people where they say, my interaction with you is in such a manner that it will profit you, that it will be good for you, and your interaction will be good towards me. Think about the situation where one buys something and then I say, but it's too expensive. But when I walk away after bargaining, I say, it's cheap, it's cheap, it's cheap. What a bargain. That's not a righteous relationship. All our relationship with all our interactions need to be righteous in this sense that it is also good for the other person and it is also good for me. It's the circular relationship, righteousness, that the Bible is talking about. The second aspect of being righteous has to do that Christians live a moral life. We have got a moral universe with a moral society, and we need to live a moral life. Righteousness has to do that we are not to conform necessarily to the way our society or the societal norms are expressed, but we do need to conform towards the will of God, and in that sense live a better moral life than our peers in the society that are not believers. Sometimes non-Christians or non-believers put Christians to shame in the manner in which their behaviors are, in this sense, more moral than is to be expected from believers. The word righteousness also reflects on what happens when God becomes part of a person's life. What happens when God intervenes and what changes takes place. The whole idea of nearing God is that when I near Him knowing about my sin, knowing about my hindrances, knowing about my self-defeating behavior. I near Him. And this is what grace is. We don't have to be perfect once we near Him. But then, through the sacrifice, especially the sacrifice of Christ, we are changed and then we become righteous. And this is the meaning of the word. Then we become righteous in status. Not because we had a perfect life, but because of some sacrifice. And from then on, we need to live according to the righteousness that we have achieved through the sacrifice. Now you can understand the working of Christ. Now you can understand why Paul said that Christ is our righteousness. Because through His sacrifice, there is this divine working in your life where you become righteous in front of God. And then you are called to live according to that righteousness. To do what is right and just is more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice.